Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Alejandra Horvat, and I'm very happy that you are here for another Saturday with Power Query. After 2 months, almost 2 months, I'm back. So it was just way too busy, and I just couldn't keep up with everything. So thank you so very much for joining me today. I see a little bit of reflection with the light on my glasses. Probably I'm gonna take the glasses off, and if I need them later on, I will put them on back. Okay, excellent. So let me start showing you today what we're going to see. So let me start. Well, let me start telling you that I was part of the Global Excel Summit on February 8th, and I had a blast. But also, I wasn't able to show all the techniques that I wanted to show. So today, I'm going to share with you one of them. I can see Mark. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you are here. Thank you so much. Glad to see you back. I know I was away for way too long, and I'm just losing track here. All the screens that I have, just let me check out here just to make sure that everybody can see properly. Excellent. Okay, now let me start sharing my screen so I can show you what we're gonna see today. Just a second. And also what happened here, StreamYard changed me, settings, present. Change me a little bit of this, and just, I had one option before, now I have 3 tabs, and I always need to look for that. Excellent. This one. Perfect. So here we are gonna check a file. Here on my desktop, I have a folder that is called Demo 2023, February 18, and I have 3 files. One is the sales, another one is the additional, because at the end, when we finish with our query, we will add new information, and that information will be transformed in the same way that our sales file. And of course, I have my sold file. So I'm gonna open the sales file, and I'm gonna show you how this information is provided to us. Let's say we have a lot of products here. We have the sales for January to March, April to June, July to September, October to December, okay? So also the challenge here is that the reports come in different layout for the rows. Sheet 6 has no blank rows on the top. Sheet 5 has the sales, and it has a bunch of empty rows. Sheet 4 doesn't have any, and so on. We can check every single sheet, and it's different structure, let's say. My goal is to figure out a way to get the name of the customer that is centered here between all of these columns, that really the information is in cell B3 and B4 in this sheet. All of the names are in the same way. They are on column B. There are 2 lines for the name, one with the name, one with the last name, and so on, okay? So the challenge here is how I'm gonna get the name of the customer inside of my table. I need to transform, I need to clean all this data. I need to figure out a way to bring these names, name and last name, in one column to add to my table. And of course, I need to eliminate all the nulls or all the empty rows that I have on top of this name. Okay, so that is the challenge today, and those are the techniques that I want to show you. Actually, I want to show you the techniques that I use to do something like this. Okay, I hope you find it useful. I hope you enjoy it. So let's start. And before I go there, let me see. I see Vanessa. Vanessa, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. From Bolivia and Paraguay. Excellent. Happy Carnival Saturday from Bolivia and Paraguay. Excellent. Thank you, Vanessa. Muchas gracias. Excellent. Okay. So we are gonna work with custom functions today. We're gonna create we're gonna create the process of cleaning these sheets in one sheet. And we are gonna replicate that process through a custom function. So later on, we're gonna invoke that function to clean everything, all the sheets in this file, okay? So I'm gonna go to a blank workbook right here. You can also press Control N. I have an icon here on the top. You can also press Control N, and then you can get a new workbook. And from there, I'm gonna go to Data, Get Data, from File, from Excel workbook. From here, we are gonna see the content. First, I need to choose the file. So I'm gonna go Desktop, Demo 2023, February 18, and my file is Sales. I'm gonna double click there, and now I'm gonna see the content of that file. The navigator will show me all the sheets. This is the file, Sales XLSX. These are the sheets that I just showed you. So as I told you, there are different structures. Let's pick this sheet 5 with a lot of empty rows on before the name, on top of the name. So I'm gonna select Transform Data, or I can right click at the sheet 5 and select Transform Data, okay? The Power Query editor will open. And here I have my file, my information. Power Query on the right, on the query settings, has created some steps for me. It changed the type. I cannot change the data type yet, so I'm gonna delete that step. It promoted the headers. I cannot do that either, because as you can see, these are not the correct headers. For me, the headers are gonna be product, January to March, April to June, and so on. So I need to delete that step as well. I'm gonna keep the navigation step, which is really the content of the sheet 5. Control-Shift plus to zoom in. And here I can see the code that Power Query created for me. It's taking from the previous step source, it's taking the item sheet 5, that is the sheet that I just selected. It's kind sheet. This information is coming from the column kind, from the column item, selecting the sheet 5. The kind is sheet, is not a table, it was a sheet. And this is coming from the column data. Okay, so Power Query transforms this information into a table, and the tables or the nested tables are inside of the column data. I'm gonna go one step before that to the step 4. So that's where we're gonna see our column data. The name of the item is our sheet 5, and the kind is sheet. That is what Power Query is just bringing. I'm gonna go back to my navigation, and the first thing that I need to address is how I'm gonna eliminate dynamically these empty rows. Well, that is gonna be easy. I'm gonna go to my formula bar. I'm gonna click at effects. As you can see, our formula bar is pointing to the previous step, but it doesn't say navigation. It says sheet 5, sheet, which is the item, sheet 5, kind, sheet. So Power Query has named that variable, the name of the sheet and the kind of that object, let's say. So it only happens with the step navigation. Power Query names this navigation, but the name of the variable is truly sheet 5 underscore sheet. And you can see that also if you go to View, Advanced Editor. Here, inside of the let and in expressions, we have the name of the variables, and the values that these variables are going to have is the result of these functions, of these formulas, functions. So you can see here that it doesn't say navigation, it says sheet 5 underscore sheet. That is the name of the variable. That's why we see that here on the formula bar, okay? So I'm gonna go out of my advanced editor. After the equal, I'm gonna say table, and I'm gonna skip. I'm gonna eliminate anything that is on this table. It's asking me for a table. The table is the one that is coming from my previous step. That is the table that I'm seeing here, comma. It's asking me for a count or condition. I cannot give it a count because all the sheets have different row number where the name starts, right? So I cannot say skip 5, skip 4, because it's not going to be consistent. So I'm going to give it a condition instead. And I'm going to say each. I need to give a function when I'm going to give a condition. So each is a keyword for a function. So I'm going to say each. And now I want to select in square brackets column 2, because I'm indicating that this is going to be a column. From column 2, I want you that actually equal to skip. I want you to skip everything that is equal to null. And leave as soon as you find something that is not equal to null, stop. And I'm going to press enter. You can see now that we don't have any more nulls on top of the name. Excellent, we are doing great. I'm going to rename this step as start or base, something significant like that, because we're going to come back to this step to work with this table. So another thing that I forgot here on the queries section, I didn't rename my query. So I'm going to double click to rename it. And I'm going to say this is going to be my sample. I'm going to create my function, my custom function from this step, or from this query, sorry. So now that I did that, I'm going to hide my queries so I have a little bit more room on my data section. You can see your table much better. Excellent. Now I rename this as a start. The thing that I want to keep from this table is only the first 2 rows. Now that I remove the null rows, all of my tables are going to have the name and the last name in the first 2 rows. I'm going to add a new step. I'm going to click here at FX on my formula bar, or I can go to my steps, right click, and I can select insert step after. When I do that, I have an equal, and I have an equal to the previous step, which is the table that I'm seeing here. After the equal, I'm going to say table, skip, actually first. Table, first, n. I want to keep only the first 2 rows. Open parentheses is asking me for a table. The table is coming from my step of my variable start. And it's asking me again for a condition or a count. In my case, I know that the first 2 rows refer to the name and last name, so I can just say 2. I'm going to close parentheses and I'm going to press enter. By doing this, I have that the first 2 rows. I need to transpose this information, so I'm going to work in the same step, and I'm going to grab this on the table, transpose. Open parentheses, and the table is the table that I'm seeing, so I'm just, and the result of the table first end, and I'm going to just close the parentheses at the end, and I'm going to press enter, and here I have the name and the last name. I'm going to merge these 2 columns. I'm going to select the first column, press and hold Control, select the second column. I'm going to right click and merge columns. Here I have the option or the opportunity to select a separator. I want to separate my name and last name with 1 space. So I'm going to click at this arrow. I'm going to select space. And the name of this column, I'm going to say customer name. I'm going to press OK. Now I have only 1 column. That's what I needed, right? So I needed the name and last name of the customers, but I don't want to keep everything else. I just want to keep the second row in this column. Well, if I want to do that, I can just tell Power Query through the curly brackets. I can tell Power Query that I want to keep only the second row. Remember that Power Query is base 0, so row 1 will be 0, row 2 will be 1, row 3 will be 2, and so on. So I need to tell Power Query 1. I'm going to press enter, and now I have the name and last name of my customer in one place. This is a record. This is a record. So I have the name field here, and I have the content of the record, right? So I'm going to rename this step. Instead of merge columns, I'm going to call it customer name. Okay. So now we can work with our table here on our step start. Now we can work with this table. We can remove the first two rows. We can normalize this data, bring in all the months or the periods. I can bring them in one column and bring the amounts in another column. Then I will be able to insert a column with the name of the customer using this customer name, okay? To do that, I'm gonna go here to the formula bar. I'm gonna press F(X) to create another step, which is referring to the previous step, custom name. I don't want that. I'm gonna delete that, and I'm gonna refer to my table start. That's why it's important that we identify that at the beginning, so I know which table I need to bring to work with. So now that I have this, I need to remove the first two rows because I don't need that. So after the equal, I'm gonna say table skip again. And this time I can give a count. I can give a condition as well if I want to. If you prefer to give a condition, you can say, for example, column 1, remove anything that is not equal to product. See, in my case, I know that all the tables will come exactly in the same structure, so I can easily say remove the first two rows. I'm going to press close the parentheses, press enter, and now I can see that the name and last name are gone. Now I can promote my first line as headers. I can create another step here by clicking at this table on the left and selecting use first row as headers, or I can go to my formula bar after the equal and I can say table promote headers. It's exactly the same, and I don't need to create an extra step. It's very simple formula or function. So just say table promote header, open and close parentheses at the end, press enter, and now I have all the information properly organized for me to normalize, okay? And what do I mean by normalize? I want to put together all the similar information in one column and all the other similar information in another column. By saying this is all the months, I want them in one column, and all the amounts, I want it in another column. So to do that, I'm going to right-click, select product, the product column, right-click, and select unpivot other columns. This is normalizing my data. Now that I have this here, I haven't renamed my steps, but let's rename just the last one. And I'm going to say this is going to be unpivoted. Instead of unpivoted other columns, I'm just going to call it unpivoted. I don't like long names, so this is just easier for me to identify. Within this step, what it's doing is table unpivot other columns from the table that is coming from the previous step. The column that you're going to leave as is, that you're going to leave on the left as is the column product. You are going to create a new column that is going to be called attribute. I don't want that. I want to call this period, right? So you can always double click at the title of the column and rename it. It's going to create you another step, but I'm going to take advantage of the code right here and I'm going to use it. And instead of attribute, I'm going to say period. And instead of value for the amount, I'm going to say amount. I'm going to go to the end and I'm going to press enter. We can see now that the titles of these columns are as I want, right? So excellent. Now I'm able to add information for the name of this customer as a new column right here. So I can go to add column here and just press escape because I was working on the formula bar. So I can go to add column and custom column, or I can work with the code, whatever is your preference, right? So let's do it this time from here, from the ribbon. So I'm going to go to add column, custom column. How I'm going to call this column? I'm going to say customer. Let's do that, customer. I'm going to say equal. What is this going to be equal to? It's going to be equal now to the customer name. Remember that step where we separated the name of that customer, where we are going to refer to that step right here, customer name. And I'm going to say, okay. Now what happens here? What happened is, if I go to the customer name, this is a record. This is the name of the field or the record field. And this is the name, and this is the content of that record. For that reason, when I add a column with that information, it's bringing me a record with the name and last name. Now, remember how we can project, how we can call the content of a record. There are two ways how we can do this. I can go to each and I can say, well, now I want you, Power Query, to bring me the content that is inside of the customer name field. So I'm going to say record field name. Record field name. Oh, record field. Then I just said record field. Record field, actually. Record field. I'm going to open parentheses. And that is my record. It's asking me for a record. The record is coming from my step customer name. I'm going to say comma. And now it's asking me the field as text. What is that field? It's customer name. That's how we call that specific field, customer name. I'm going to go to the end, close parentheses for a record field, close parentheses for table add columns, and I'm going to press enter. And I gave me an error. And it didn't give me an error. Okay, I did something. Oh, it's because I put name R. That's why you need to type this, spell it in the same way that you call your record, just your record field. And now we have the name of the customer, the name and last name. So this is one way how you can call that information here. If you don't want to use the function record field, you can just call the content. Remember that to call the content of one field, you just need to use the square brackets. So let me use the square brackets here. And this was customer name. I go to the end, I press enter, and I get exactly the same information. Nothing changed because it's exactly the same information. This is how you can call the content from this step, customer name. Customer name is the name of the field. This is the content of that field. And for that reason, when I go back to my last step, this is the name of my step. And this is the name of the field where the name and last name are located. Okay? Excellent. Let me see. Alejandro, bienvenido. Muchas gracias. Welcome here. Thank you so much for joining. Oh, Kasim, thank you so much for joining. Nice to see you again. It's nice to see everybody here. I'm very happy that you are joining me on Saturday, so I really appreciate you take time of your Saturday to be with me. Thank you so much. Excellent. Now we have our table ready to go, right? So this is exactly what we want to do with all the sheets. Well, let me just rename this step, and I'm going to say added customer name. Customer name. I'm going to unhide our queries, and I'm going to create a custom function from my query, my sample. I'm going to right click, I'm going to duplicate. Remember that if you want to be cautious and you want to have your query to go back in case something goes wrong, and have the query, the one that you are going to work with, and transform this into a function, then that's the way to go. So I'm going to double click on my sample 2, and I'm going to remove the number 2, and I'm going to put fx just before my sample. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to say, this doesn't convert it into a function. I just put the fx because it's very easy to identify your own functions when you are invoking them. So I'm going to go to View, and I need to work in the Advanced Editor. From there, I'm going to press Ctrl+Shift+, and I'm going to go to the top. Remember that we need to, give me 1 second, to Power Query. To indicate that this is a function, I need to provide the parentheses where the parameters are going to go inside of. I'm going to say equal and greater than. Remember, this is the symbol, the goes to symbol. And inside of the parentheses, I need to provide the parameters, or the parameter in our case. My parameter will be my table because that is what I want to transform. So you need to provide a table to be transformed through this process. And I'm going to say my table as table, close parentheses. And I want that the result of this function is a table. So I'm also going to say as table. And this is more than anything to prevent error later on or from here. Because this function won't accept anything that is not a table. If someone tries to provide numbers or text or a list, the function will indicate that needs to be a table, otherwise it won't accept that value, right? So that's why I'm providing this as table. This is optional, you can leave it open, but if you leave it open, you have the risk that a different value is entered and it's gonna give you error anyways if you try to invoke this function, okay? So now that I have this information here, I'm gonna delete the first two steps because I don't want that. I will provide the table, so I don't need any of these two steps. I'm gonna delete that. And I want my function to start on my start step or variable, okay? Because of that, I'm not gonna be working with sheet 5 anymore, so I'm gonna delete that. So I'm gonna be working with the table that I'm gonna provide, which will be my table. Excellent. My function is ready, so I'm going to press done. Here we have our custom function ready to go, ready to get the tables to clean them, right? So here on the query section, I'm going to right click, I'm going to say new query, I'm going to say file, and I'm going to bring the whole file now. This time, I'm not going to bring only one sheet, I'm going to bring the whole file. I'm going to double click there. And here the navigator again is going to show us all the content of that file. Here where we have all our tables, right? And messy and with the names here and promoted the headers. We don't want that. We don't need that. Here we have sheet 5 and sheet 6. So I'm going to select the whole file. For that reason, I'm going to select the folder. And I'm going to say, okay. Here we have, I'm going to hide our queries again to have a little bit more room here on the table. Oh, and I just realized, let me go right here. So you have more room on the table. And since I'm here, oh, hi, Jin Wee. Thank you so much for joining. Cheers to Singapore. Thank you so much for joining. Excellent. Okay, now that we have our tables here, you can see on the column data, we have our tables. If you click on the white side beside table, you can see the content of those tables. So you can see are all messy, right? Okay, well, you will see the magic just before your eyes. It's just, I love this part of the session. So we are gonna create another step with fx. I'm gonna say equal. What I wanna do is to use table transform columns. From there, I'm going to open parentheses, and it's asking me for a table. The table is coming from my previous step, which is source, which is this table that I'm seeing. I'm going to press comma, and it's going to ask me transform operations as list. So for Power Query, to tell Power Query that this is a list, I need to provide the curly brackets. Inside of that, I need to tell Power Query which column I want to transform. So in quotation marks, I'm going to say data. That's the column where all my nested tables are. I'm going to say comma. I'm going to provide each because I'm going to ask for a transformation. So I need to provide a function which this keyword each represents. And I'm going to tell Power Query, please process the following, which is fx. And now if I type fx, now you can see on the list, your functions come up as the first lines, or the first line or first lines, depending how many functions, custom functions you have. That's why I like to provide the fx before the name of my function. So once I select that, I'm going to open parentheses, and I'm going to provide my table. Well, that is coming from my column data, the column that I'm going to transform. So I don't need to repeat data. I need to provide the underscore to indicate Power Query that needs to apply or needs to invoke that function for every single line, for every single table that is inside of the column data. I close parentheses for the FX sample, close curly brackets for the transformation, and then I need to close the parentheses for the table transform columns. I'm going to press enter. And now look, this is when the magic happens. If we take a peek to our tables, if we click at the white part beside table, they are not messy anymore. They are transformed just as our previous query, right? So in no time, this information has been transformed. Now, the next thing that I can do, well, I can just combine all these tables in one big table, if that's what I want to do. And that's exactly what I want to do. So I'm going to press FX to create a new step. I'm going to say equal. I'm going to say table combine, right? Table combine, this. Open parenthesis is asking me for a table, for the tables as list. Well, that is coming from my column data. And I like to use table combine because what this function is going to do is going to expand the tables on the column inside of the column data, and it's not going to hard code any of the column names. So by doing this, it's completely dynamic, right? So later on, if we have different column names that we have right now, then the query won't break. The query will still work because we are not hard coding any column name. Right? The only thing that you need to be aware when you use table combine is that the columns, the tables are going to expand or are combined, but all the other columns beside or around data disappear. Now that I press enter or click here, then I have table combine, from the table that is coming from the previous step, which is custom one. The tables are inside of the column data, and this is what I get. Now I have all the information, all the tables have been combined. None of the other columns remains. I'm going to go back one step, custom one. Name, item, kind, hidden. None of them remain. It only opens, let's say, expands all these tables, combines them, but it doesn't keep any of the information from the other columns. All of that information disappears, and it brings only the combination of all the tables that were inside of my column data. Okay? Now I'm ready to go. If I click here to see the content of this column, it says list may be incomplete. If I click at load more, now I can see that I have the name of all the other customers, which is just magic to me. Okay, I can select one column, I can press Control A, and then I can go to transform. I can say detect data type, and then I can have all the data type well identified. So this is text, this is whole number, text, and text. This is correct. And I'm sorry for the noise, but my cats are playing. So if you hear some noise here, sorry about that. They like to play when I'm live. So, okay. Now we can go home, close and load to. And now I can go to my my Excel sheet, and I can bring this. I'm going to bring only create connection because I don't want to bring all the queries as tables on different tabs. No, I just want to bring the last one that I didn't rename, by the way. So I'm going to right click at sales XLXX, which is the name of the file. And I'm going to say load to, and I'm going to go to pivot table report, and I'm going to select B2, and I'm going to say, okay. Once I'm there, now I have the option to bring the amount to the values, the customer to the rows, and the period to the columns, let's say. And they are very similar because I created this with the run array formula. So yeah, I put a range, and then all the numbers are quite similar. But anyways, the idea here is just to show the techniques that I'm really hoping that's going to be useful. So you can see now we have information for 6 customers, right? So I have count 6, we have 6 customers. And let me go back to our file, which is sales, where this is the starting point. This is where the query is bringing the information from. We have 6 sheets. And now I'm going to open that file that says additional. I'm going to double click there. And here we will have sheet 7 and sheet 8. Same thing, this one doesn't have any blank rows on the top, but this one has. And same thing, the name and the last name are really on column B. However, they are just centered in all these columns. Excellent. What I'm going to do, I'm going to select sheet 7, press and hold Shift, select sheet 8. I'm going to right click. I'm going to select move or copy. And for some reason, this doesn't want to work. I need to bring it to the other screen so it works. So from there, I'm going to select, let me see if now it wants to work. Yeah, now it wants to work. Okay. Now I'm going to click at the row and I'm going to move this to the sales file. I have 6 sheets there. I'm going to move them to the end and I'm going to press OK. This is my file sales. Now I have not 6, but 8 sheets. I have sheet 7 and 8. I'm going to save it. And let me minimize it. I'm going to go to my book 2, the query that we just did, and we haven't saved the file either. So anyhow, so hopefully it doesn't break, but anyway. I'm going to right click at my pivot table and I'm going to select, can you see? Yes, and I'm going to select refresh. Now you can see that the 2 names were added. I don't have 6 customers anymore. I have 8. That easy, that fast, Power Query has transformed this information. If I go here to see my queries and connections, I have 96,000 rows. That fast, our information was transformed, was clean and transformed. So it's just amazing. So for that reason, I wanted to share that with you today. I hope you find these techniques useful. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Don't hesitate to contact me in LinkedIn. If you have any ideas for the future presentations, so that would be very welcome. If I don't see more comments, I don't see questions, so I'm assuming it was clear as mud. So hopefully you can find it useful, really. So thank you so very much for giving me some of your Saturday, and I'm back. Unfortunately, I didn't even have a chance to have any short videos in the meantime. So, but well, we are back on Saturdays. I hope next Saturday you can join me to the, oh, I forgot to say that. Well, I'm going to be in a global Power Platform bootcamp. I'm organizing the one for my city. And, oh my God, I didn't prepare that sheet. Global Bootcamp, Global Power Platform Bootcamp, Edmonton. I'm going to be hosting that. If you want to learn more about that, contact me in LinkedIn or in Twitter, and I will be sharing some information about that. So because of that, I'm not sure if I'm going to have the Saturday with Power Query because it's all Saturday next week. So probably not, but I let you know on the community tab of my channel. Okay, so you have a wonderful weekend, have a wonderful week, and I'll see you. If I don't see you next Saturday, I'll see you the Saturday after. Okay, you have a great time, and thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much, and I'll see you later. Okay, bye.